For over a century, the American auto industry has been, well, a symbol of innovation, resilience, and economic power. But recently, a shockwave rippled through its heartland, leaving factories shuttered, workers unemployed, and the future oh so uncertain. This wasn't a foreign competitor or a market crash, it was a self-inflicted wound caused by President Trump's tariff policies. This article delves into how these tariffs impacted major automakers like Ford, GM, and Stellantis, and the devastating consequences for American workers and the economy. It started subtly, just a hushed concern in Detroit's factories. Then, on May 17th, the unthinkable happened. Ford announced the shutdown of several iconic U.S. assembly lines. Plants in Chicago and Michigan, the ones responsible for producing popular models like the Ford Explorer, Lincoln Aviator, Bronco, and Ranger, well, they just ground to a halt. Thousands of workers were sent home, unsure when they would return. The culprit? A 25% tariff on all imported parts and vehicles. This policy, which was intended to punish China and Mexico, backfired spectacularly, hammering American factories that relied on global supply chains. Ford projected a staggering $1.5 billion earnings hit in 2025, a blow that forced some really drastic measures. Ford's struggles were just the beginning. The impact of the tariff spread like wildfire across the Midwest, affecting other major automakers. General Motors, or GM, scrambled to revise production lines, laying off hundreds of workers and quietly shifting some truck assembly back to Indiana. Stellantis, which includes Chrysler and Dodge, idled entire plants in Canada and Mexico, leading to 900 layoffs in Michigan and Indiana component plants. Even emergency pricing changes like raising the prices of the Mustang Mach-E, Maverick, and Bronco Sport by nearly $2,000 couldn't offset the tariff's impact for Ford. The Lincoln Nautilus, imported from China, became too expensive to compete, forcing Ford to halt exports to China entirely, losing access to a massive market. Despite the mounting evidence of economic damage, President Trump remained steadfast in his America First policy. When questioned about Ford's production freeze, he dismissed it as expected and doubled down on the tariffs. This unwavering stance sent chills through the auto industry, leaving executives wondering who would be next. Faced with crippling tariffs, automakers were forced to make difficult decisions. Stellantis curtailed SUV production in Mexico, leading to parts shortages, assembly line shutdowns, and layoffs at 5 U.S. stamping plants. GM attempted to mitigate the damage by adding a shift and hiring 200 workers at its Fort Wayne truck plant to build more trucks on U.S. soil. However, these were short-term fixes. Nissan began canceling U.S. orders for certain SUVs made in Mexico, Toyota slowed shipments, and Honda raised prices. The storm was intensifying. The tariffs ultimately impacted consumers, with new car prices jumping by over 2.5% in a single month, the highest spike in years. Dealerships warned of buyers rushing to sign contracts before the next price hike. But, inventory was thinning, deliveries were stalling, and popular models were disappearing from lots. Ford even offered employee pricing to everyone, a desperate measure to keep sales moving as costs soared. But the math no longer worked. The supply chain was failing at every turn, with auto parts from Mexico, cars assembled in Canada, and components from China all facing hefty duties. The economic consequences of the tariffs extended beyond the auto industry, impacting entire communities. Layoffs hit workers who had been spared during the last recession, component lines were shut down, and entire shifts were erased. Local businesses like diners, grocery stores, and repair shops began to feel the pinch. Governors called emergency meetings, labor boards issued warnings about rising unemployment, and city mayors begged Washington for relief. But the tariffs held firm. The North American auto industry, once a marvel of integrated production spanning 3 countries, was fracturing. Companies were forced to make decisions based on survival, not efficiency. Production shifted, shipments paused, orders canceled, and prices raised. The political divide deepened, with Trump defending the tariffs and Democrats decrying the cost. Caught in the middle were workers watching their paychecks shrink and their futures evaporate. The industry is bracing for retaliation. China has already imposed tariffs on American cars, leading to drying exports and a shift towards Korean and European models in overseas markets. American cars are becoming too expensive abroad, and potentially at home as well. Ford, while not gone, is reeling, and the workers who built this company are left wondering, was it worth it? The story of the American auto industry under Trump's tariffs serves as a cautionary tale about the unintended consequences of protectionist trade policies. While the goal of America First may have resonated with some, the reality was a crippled industry, lost jobs, and economic hardship for countless Americans. The long-term effects of this period remain to be seen, but one thing is clear: the road to recovery will be long and arduous. What do you think? Should tariffs be reconsidered to protect American jobs and industries? Share your thoughts in the comments below.